Eric Nicksick, head coach of Xtreme Couture. In what must be a very busy week for you, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm good, man. It's actually nice to get into quarantine because when you're at the gym, you're just getting pulled in 100 different directions. So, and then being at home and a wife and 3 kids. So when you get in quarantine, it's actually a little bit of a reprieve. Don't tell her I said that
I won't.
though.
Is there a little bit of maybe more focus towards the guys who are fighting?
Big time. And when you're home, I try as best as I can to still give the guys that need their attention at the gym. But when you get into quarantine and when you live in Vegas, it kind of gives you that fight vibe. And man, like I'm busy all day long. And when you're on, you got a guy fighting, it's hard to stay focused on him, because you're just getting pulled in 1,000 different directions. So yeah, man, it's definitely nice to be able to get into the room and chill.
I would imagine, correct me if I'm wrong, but I would imagine Xtreme Couture and the guys that you'll work with must feel like a conveyor belt at times, because we've got 3 guys this weekend, we've got Ige the week after, we've got Francis at the end of the month. It must feel like a lot of pressure for yourself.
Not really. I know that, we want to make sure that all of our fighters feel like they're getting the quality of coaching that they need. So that's what's nice about having great guys in the gym. I think that's important because there's a level of care and standard I think you want to try to give every fighter, and not every coach can do that. You need your help. So it's nice when you get guys have like Eddie and Dennis and Ray Sefo and Nate. We lean on each other a lot, and one guy might be a head coach to the other, and the other guy's role is kind of a support. So I think when you delegate a little bit more throughout the gym, it helps with that time. It helps with that concern and the level of care in the room.
And plus, you've got a lot of notable names out of the gym. So I would, as I said to Eddie a little bit earlier, they must work together to almost iron sharpening iron, if you like.
Yeah, and I think that's a lot of the big selling factors, for us at Xtreme is we have a really good standard. We take care of one another, but at the same time, like, when you get a room full of talented individuals, it's gonna bring more people in, and that's been a good problem to have as of late. The mats are full, but at the same time, you look around, you're like, man, we got some of the top guys from every major organization, and then other guys coming in like from out of town, to come train with us. So it's nice, and it's important too to be able to have that set of skill set in the room.
Yeah, that's one of the things we talked about, as well as the location of your gym allows a lot of exterior talent to come in. I believe Kevin Holland has been there last couple of weekends prior, and obviously Vegas is the fight capital of the world, so there's always going to be an extra name in town who is more than likely going to come and spend some time with yourself.
Yeah, and that's helped a lot, especially too with the PI. That has brought a lot of fighters to Vegas, and then they've decided to make it a home here because the benefits for being having access to the PI is overwhelming. I'm actually surprised a lot more fighters don't take advantage of it like they should.
Yeah, that's a big advantage. It's all UFC fighters are allowed access, and some kind of Bellator and other organization talent, are they allowed in or not?
Well, yeah, technically. So throughout the years, the PI was a little lax in the beginning. You were able to get in. Wasn't too hard, but each fighter is supposed to have like a teammate or two that they're able to bring in as guests. Excuse me. So technically, if you're on the Bellator roster, so Jeremy Kennedy, for example, he fought with the UFC for a long time. He was 3-1 in the UFC. Gets his release, but then he's able to still go in because Dan Ige and him are training partners, right? So Ige will put him on a list, and then he just gets to go in. Maybe doesn't get all the benefits as you would as a UFC fighter, but just having access to the gym alone is a huge benefit.
Yeah. It must definitely be it must be a home field advantage for these guys fighting in Vegas in terms of not a particularly long travel. I understand you have the quarantine restrictions all the same, but that PI must be a massive resource that the guys can make use of.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's it's really helped us too. I mean, it really helped us a lot where A lot of the guys are getting in-home strength and conditioning through the PI and their nutrition and then their PT. So, keeping our guys healthy for one, and number two, just the influx of guys that come into the gym, man, it's been beautiful for us.
Yeah. Why? Obviously, the gym is named after one of the pioneers of the sport. But why do you think in recent years we've seen such a growth in Hawaiian talent specifically, and talent across the globe more generally?
The Hawaiian talent is it's funny for me because I played college ball with a lot of guys that were from Hawaii. And I wasn't really too educated on the talents of them in football. And, you get to talking with them and they're like, man, it's hard for us to leave home. Like we get caught up with the surfing and just kicking back, how the Hawaiians go. So, and that's always been bred in their, the way they are. They just fight, bro. They're scrappers. And I didn't think it was going to take long because the guys that I played football with were such high level athletes. Pretty soon, like we're going to see a lot of these high level Hawaiian fighters as well. And then that's been a lot of the growth for us at Xtreme Couture has been Brad Tavares. Brad's been with us for, I think, over 10 years now. So with having Brad there, he's kind of that big brother, that lightning rod to bringing out a lot of these guys that we have in the gym right now.
Yeah, a lot of the Hawaiian guys have mentioned Brad Tavares' influence because there's BJ, isn't there? And then there's probably Max and Brad are probably in the next tier of Hawaiian. Obviously, Max is champion. Brad hasn't become champion yet. But in terms of time frame, it probably would have been him and Max coming through in that similar early 2010s period.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, for me, it was always like Cabbage Carrera, then the BJs, and then, it turned into Kendall Grove, right? And then Troy, Rude Boy, and those guys kind of were carrying the torch. But, yeah, I think Brad and Max were kind of like this generational Hawaiian fighter for the guys like Danny Ige and Puna, and Ty and Kai Kamaka, Boston, all those boys.
Yeah. Let's move a little bit to the upcoming fights because there are 3 big fights I would like to touch on, if you wouldn't mind. So we are a couple of days out from UFC 259, in which one of your guys, Aljamain Sterling, will fight for the world bantamweight title against Peter Yan. I wouldn't expect you to go into specifics, but how is Aljo looking and what are you maybe looking to impose in this fight?
Oh, he's been looking wonderful, and for me, this is obviously my first camp working with him. So he may have looked better in the past. I don't know, but he after his last sparring session, and I meant it when I saw it. I told him, I said, hey, if you fight the way you just sparred, you're the next champion of the world here. And it was, the guy was just cutting through people. He was having no issues in any spot that I saw. He could push a pace. I think those are all things that are going to kind of spill over in the fight as far as the game plan goes. Is we're gonna have to. He lays heavy on his kick game. We understand that. We wrestle a lot. We do those things, but I think Aljamain's built for something like that for those 5-round fights where he can just wear on guys, man, and cook on guys. Wrestle on guys and hang on them. That's going to be important when it comes to a 5-rounder. So, yeah, man, I'm looking forward to this fight. This kid's trained hard. And just such a good person, good integrity, good character guy. Somebody you really want to root for when you see who becomes champions.
If you don't mind me asking, do you know the reasoning behind why he decided to train at this camp, train for this camp with yourself?
Oh yeah, no, I do know. So it just be the COVID situation. He wasn't able to do much training wise. He told me that when he was fighting Corey Sandhagen, he did a lot of his training literally in Ally Quinton's garage.
Yeah.
So he knew that we had some lighter restrictions out in Vegas as far as training went. He bought a home here, I think, prior to this because of state taxes and as a business opportunity. So he just wanted to kind of check out Xtreme Couture and see how the fit was. I actually cornered against him before. With Brian Caraway. So I was familiar with Aljo. I broke him down quite a bit. So when he came to the gym and, talked about kind of seeing if this is going to be a good fit for him and what his needs were, that was important too. Like I understood that, hey, Ray and Matt, when they're here, those are the 2 head coaches and you just have to know your role when it comes to what they want. And that was it. So we sat down and kind of went over everything. He goes, I need you to bridge the gap for me from Vegas to Long Island. I don't want to be my own head coach here in Vegas. So I want to bring you along if that's something you'd be interested in doing. And, right away I was in. Like, how can you pass up working with a guy like Aljamain Sterling for something so big and dynamic, man? I was like, dude, this is something I got to tell my kids about. I'm in.
Yeah, yeah, and I've seen that the likes of Merab Dvalishvili has also been down in Vegas. So what you're saying is Aljo is blending the two in terms of the resources we've mentioned with Xtreme Couture and I would presume the PI, but also with his core of guys back in Long Island.
Yeah, so I mean, he brought a bunch of his training partners from Long Island. He had great training partners here at Xtreme Couture. Kai Kamaka and Dan and all the boys gave Aljamain great rounds. And when we sent him back over to Ray would just be like, man, these are some tough rounds, some tough guys, some good looks, and then vice versa. So Aljo would go back to Long Island. He was back there pretty much through Christmas and up till January. And they would send me his sparring videos, and I'd break them down, and we'd send them back and just stay in constant communication. But that was always kind of the set role, and I think that's great. I think when you get into a position like that, is clear the air right away and make everybody understand who and what their role is. You're the CEO of your own company, so you need to appoint the people that you need to appoint. And if I had a problem with it or my ego had a problem with it, then I would have said no. But that's not my game, and I was happy to be a part of Aljo's camp.
Yeah, yeah. Let's move a little bit further forward. So next weekend, the 13th, we will see another one of your guys that you work with quite heavily, Dan Ige. He was originally meant to fight Ryan Hall, but the fight has been cancelled and he's now fighting Gavin Tucker. We've got a couple of weeks, so I would. It's not a James Krause situation where he's fighting on a day's notice, but how much can you plan for with this late replacement? What is the process of you getting a fighter ready for a new opponent on a couple of weeks' notice?
For us, it's that mentality of just, prepare for everything. If you go into the Ryan Hall situation, and I kind of had a feeling this guy was going to pull out to begin with. So I try to make sure that our fighters, no matter the situation, that we're working on 80% of what we're going to do and dictate in our fight. And then focus the other 20% on the defensive things and things that Ryan Hall might do. Now, we get the fact that Ryan's quite, different, and what he's really good at is just two really good things, right? So it's like you are preparing for a specific individual in Ryan, but at the same time, if you're working on 80% of your workload, it doesn't matter who the next opponent's going to be if somebody falls out. And I know Gavin really well. He came out and trained with me. He's a great kid. I think he's a great prospect as well. And unfortunately, just because of COVID and some of the weird things that kind of went on, he ends up now fighting two of my teammates. He fought Justin James and, one of my guys. So, I think big ups to Gavin, man. He's fighting a tough dude on short notice, and he agreed to make 145. So, I don't think there's a lot of preparing that you really need to do, other than the fact to just do your homework on the guy and come up with a basic game plan, and you can build off of it as you go.
Yeah, I think what as you mentioned, my question was more because Ryan Hall is such a strange style, isn't he? He's very kick orientated, but then he's going to go for heel hooks. It's two extremes.
Yeah, we call him a booger.
That makes sense.
He's a booger. Just like you just just sticks on your finger. Like, get out of here, booger. Yeah, that's what we call guys like that. Talented booger, though.
In your opinion, and this is no disrespect to whoever you don't pick for this question, who is the harder matchup for Dan? Gavin Tucker or Ryan Hall?
Gavin Tucker by far.
Yeah.
I think Gavin Tucker. I think this is a young, hungry kid, and I've worked with this kid before and seen what he's capable of and his talent level. This kid's good, man. And I think, if they, Dan gets past Gavin, I don't think this is going to be a big drop off for Gavin. I think you're going to see this kid come some good wins off and get right back into the rankings. This kid's good. He's talented as all hell. Yeah. The thing with Ryan, man, Ryan's he's an intriguing, he's tough to deal with. And every time you see him come out, his striking or the kick game that he has, I don't think he throws any punches, but it's better and better every time. So he's adding new wrinkles to his game, and then he does his Imanari rolls and his butt scoots and flops and everything else. So it's hard to find guys, right, that can do and mimic Ryan Hall. So that was pretty difficult while the time it lasted.
Yeah. And let's just move a little bit towards the end of the month. So on the 27th, I believe, we will see the heavyweight title fight between a rematch between Stipe Miocic and your guy Francis Ngannou. First and foremost, because I'm not 100% aware, how long have you been working with Francis, and why should people? The betting line favours Francis, but why should people believe this fight won't go the same as the first?
So the first part of your question, he came out, started training at Xtreme Couture on Curtis Blades 2. Okay. So he was so it's the start of his win streak. But we as coaches at Xtreme Couture just ran his team practices. He kept his own coaches, I believe, all the way up until maybe Kane. I can't remember, but Dewey Cooper's been working with him since he's been in Vegas, and then so when he started coming over to Couture's, him and I just kind of sparked it off and had a good relationship and decided that, we want to start working together. So that I think was might have been a little bit during Kane and then JDS.
Yeah. Okay. And as I mentioned, how much has his game maybe improved or changed under your style, and why won't the rematch go the same as the first fight?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things where you see the odds and you're like, man, like how is this guy favored when, the way Stipe beat him and the way Stipe's looked, quite frankly, I think he's looked amazing. So yeah, it's a tough thing, but it's the fashion, the way that Francis wins, the way he puts people out. I think the odds makers understand that just this guy touches you one time and it's lights out. But, during this duration that we've had him, he's really fallen in love with the grappling, the wrestling, the jiu-jitsu. It's something I think that he understands that we talked about after he lost to Stipe. He's like, man, I just know this is an area of improvement that I need to have. And, for us, I guess it's a good problem to have. He hasn't had to show it, So in that time frame, I bring Randy in every camp. So Randy's helped me out. He's helped a lot with his wrestling and ground game. The same knowledge that we all have through our ideology, essentially, at Xtreme Couture, with the ground and pound and the way we like to do things. So, yeah, I mean, I could say it till I'm blue in the face, but, until we prove it, I understand people are going to have doubts and there's going to be critics out there, but there's nothing I can do about that. The guy's going out and winning in dominating fashion. So I'm proud of him. I know the work that he's putting in the gym, and I think it would show.
Yeah, there is often rematches that are maybe not warranted. We see a lot of immediate rematches, especially after a finish, which I always find a little bit strange. But this one definitely deserves a rematch because Francis has been on a tear and Stipe has continued to be the man, albeit the first Daniel Cormier fight. Yeah,
that's a good point too, man. I go back and watch those two Cormier fights, the first two, and the second fight, he needed to finish Cormier, and he found a way to get it done. Cormier was winning those first 3 rounds, and I think Stipe ended up finding a finish in the fourth round. And then, it came out and looked completely different fighter and amazing in his third fight. The movement, the angles, the way he was fighting that fight. So he's only gotten better. He's only gotten better since he's fought Francis, and same with Francis, right? He's gotten better himself. So I think that's what makes this style matchup intriguing and the timing of it as well.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. If we talk as well about, obviously, you've got 2 guys fighting for the world title in reasonably similar time frame, 1 bantamweight and 1 heavyweight. Obviously, I know they're different people, so it won't be similar in totality, but how much do you structure a camp based upon some of these weight or body frame or them kinds of aspects?
As far as like weight management or cardio or things of that sort?
Well, I suppose heavyweight don't have to cut weight, so that would be one aspect, but just in terms of maybe intensity and game plan, does that change at all?
It depends on what they've been doing, and I call it the off season, right? Out of camp. It depends on what they're doing in that off season, and that's what we tell these guys, especially at the highest level. So much opportunity is being made by guys being able to make short notice fights, and being in shape, being ready to go is only a benefit. But now, if you get so far off the rails, an 8-week camp now turns into 2 or 3 weeks to get your ass back into shape. And I think what's great about our gym and our system is, we honor and re-award the fighters that fight on Saturday and they're back in the gym on Monday. Not only is it good for them to stay active, but it's also important for their team to be available for them, Yeah. So, that's one of those things that we all try to deal with. And, it's just the structure for sure. And with the way the gym played out, man, it's just guys like that come in and get their work in. I think it just sets a good example and a good tone for everybody else too.
100%. I did want to briefly touch on before you go the Sicko Saturdays. Can you tell me a little bit about these? Because being a good few thousand miles away, I'm not 100% sure. What is a Sicko Saturday, and where did it maybe come from?
Well, they ended up being some cardio endurance rounds that we started a while back, and Dennis Davis, he's my guy, my head coach. He the way he did it was a little bit different, right? But it was like these chaos rounds, and then we just kind of gradually started taking them a step further. And I don't even know who came up with Sicko. It could have been Eddie or me, but who knows? Probably both of us. And then it just stuck, man. We coined it Sicko Saturdays, and it was it wasn't too many guys, Mike. Like, not a lot of dudes were chomping at the bit to come do cardio rounds, but then it was like Dan Ige, it was like Lance Palmer, and then Jeremy Kennedy, and it was just a small group of us, right? And then no one wanted to have anything to do with it. Everybody thought it was look at these Neanderthals. This is so stupid, right? We're screaming and the music blasting. I'm cussing at everybody, and Eddie's throwing shit. And then all of a sudden, right, these guys start winning fights. They start beating the shit out of people, and their cardio's through the roof and all this stuff. Well, guess what? Sicko Saturdays, you got to have a reservation now. You got to have, it's like you got to plan it, 10 days out to get a seat at the Sicko Saturday table. And everybody wants to do it. But, the whole idea of Sicko Saturday, to be quite honest with you, is not necessarily the cardio part. But you want to try to mimic MMA rounds the best you can, understand the fight IQ of where the places are to rest, how to manage your red zones. But moreover, man, like, you want to understand your corner and their voice when you're in distress and your work and you're tired. You got to be able to hear myself and Eddie and all the boys that are handling that, because that's what your corner is going to sound like too. And I want to see your ass dig a little deep and get out of some adversity and go push. I think that's the whole point of those Sicko Saturdays.
Yeah. That reminds me of something I read once about Henry Cejudo, who said, I don't know if you've ever read this, that he was mimicking the fight experience. He would have a walkout, and he would have ring music, and he would have somebody announce, and then he would spar. And he talked about the mental side of getting in that. It must be a very high stress situation. So it's probably similar to what you're alluding to, maybe a little bit more on the physical aspect.
Yeah, we actually will do that. I'll tell a guy, what's your walkout music? I'll cue it up and I'll play the walkout music and mimic a walkout, and then we'll corner the way we would corner in a fight, or try to give them some sort of insight. But yeah, I think when you start living in that mind's eye and start seeing the visualization and seeing yourself succeed and seeing yourself win, I've spent a lot of time with Henry, and I think he's one of the smartest guys and very intellectual when it comes to his visualization and seeing himself in that higher power. And I like the way, it's worked for the kid. Look at Cejudo, man. I mean, he's arguably one of the best combat athletes to ever do it, right? So I think when you take a little page out of his book, and I think that really does help guys, is that visualization. I tell guys to do it all the time.
Yeah, it's one of them things, isn't it? Mimicking a fight, that it sounds a little bit ridiculous, but then when you actually think about it, it makes total sense, because some of these guys, let's say Aljamain has only made the walk, I believe, in the 20s, 21, 22 times. It's not a lot of experience when you actually think about it. So to get that almost imprinted in, it must be a benefit.
Yeah, and that's, I think it's important to do that and see yourself there, and but not only that, but the positive outcome at the end, right? I talked to Aljamain after every practice about, like, when he gets done, to put your hands in the air and do the victory walk. And then I'll walk in and pretend like I'm putting a belt on him and make him jump up and hug everybody, right? But just because it's almost like you're just preparing your body, your mind for this to happen for me, So I believe in it, man. I think it's a great thing, a great tool to have, not only for coaches, but fighters, and, kind of seeing everything and playing everything out. And sometimes, man, it's pretty damn close to the way you see it.
I wanted to ask you one more question before we finish, Eric. Is this okay? You are one half of the 2020 Coach of the Year, along with my other good friend Tyson Chartier. Can I ask, what was that like to get a little bit of recognition for your work?
Man, it meant the world, and Um, I think the coach of the year and the gym of the year are synonymous in a way because, you know, I don't get that accolade without my guys around me, you know, and the fighters that are winning the fights. We lean heavily on each other. We're one big family. So just the outpour of winning it, you know, of everybody just so happy because I know that they understand they're a big part of that reason too.
Yeah.
So for me to get it was a win for all of us, and you know, it was important too because my wife and my kids, they sacrifice a lot. They put a lot of their time up, that, you know, they don't get to see a lot of this stuff. So to be able to get that award and kind of bring it home for the family too, really meant a lot. And then winning it with my boy Tyson too. I was the first one to tell him. He had no idea. I FaceTimed him, and he was in the middle of sparring with Calvin. They were getting ready for Max, and I was like, "Hey," I go, "Did you see MMA Junkie today?" And he's like, "No." And I go, "You won Coach of the Year." He's like, "Get the fuck out of here!" He's all excited. I was like, "Guess who also won Coach of the Year?" He's like, "Who?" Like me. And he's like, "God damn it!" He's like, "Why are you always ruining my shit, man?" Like, so we had a good laugh about it. But you know, I've known Tyson for a long time, man. He's been a good colleague. He's a guy that when we saw on the road, we immediately had a connection. We bounced things off each other. I probably talk to Tyson once a week, and you know, it's a good 20-minute, 30-minute phone call. And you know, it's a lot of times it's me picking his brain or thoughts on something, and he'll or vice versa for the most part. But I love having that relationship with him. And you know, me and James Krause are tight. We bounce stuff off each other as well. So I think it's important, especially in this sport, that you have those colleagues that you can lean on. So being able to win that award along with Tyson, you know, and I feel like James Krause was Coach of the Year as well. Like he won some different, you know, John Anik and other publications. So, you know, having those guys and close to us, it just really pushes, I think, each other more than anything.
Yeah, 100%. Well, you are one of the best in the business, Eric, so it was great to gain some insight and some knowledge from you today.
I appreciate you, Mike, man. I got a lot more work to do, but I appreciate it.
Superb. Before we finish, how can people find you and maybe the gym on social media?
Oh, easy. Yeah. It's on Instagram for me, just Eric_XC MMA. That's my personal. And then the gyms is just XC MMA.
Superb. And before we finish, is there anything you would like to say or sign off with at all?
And two, and new times two. We're gonna go get them. So.
Well, I look forward to I look forward to all the fights on Saturday. Joe's, Alon's, and of course Aljo's for the bantamweight title.
Thanks, Mike. We appreciate you, man.